Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, we have special guest, the fifth horseman, as it were, welcoming ABdaBeast from Kingdom 77, king and lead of MFD, also the fifth member from the player dev meeting. And today, we're going to go through and hear his thoughts, along with hopefully going to be able to get a little bit more of an expanded look into what the perspective is for that upcoming RoK tournament near the end. So stay tuned for that. More to come. Abda, welcome. And as always, thank you for the time.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Okay, so there is obviously a lot to get to, and we're going to kind of go down in order here from the meeting and give you the same opportunity for that we allotted to the others as well. But of course, firstly, and most importantly, I would like to hear what your thoughts were from this meeting, because as we've now come to know, there have been two kind of player dev meetings, with the first one being different than the second one. So I'm curious, what was your thoughts on how this meeting for the second one came across? And if you did attend the first meeting, how did it differ to you?
Yeah, so to begin with, before the meeting actually started, they had their face cam on. So we were able to see 10 different devs sitting together, huddled around a computer, and we were able to see all their faces, and we were able to see kind of the main dude who was talking and translating and everything, which was really, really nice. That was, a good feeling to see all that. It felt a lot more personal and less disconnected. Um, so the start of that, I was like really confident and happy and stuff. Um, so that was the beginning. And then, I mean, they were just way more responsive with like suggestions and everything. Um, I'll get into why I'm kind of disappointed in that later, but like in the meeting, they made a couple of promises and told us they were going to do a few things. And then after the announcement that they send out, which did not include some of those things. Now I'm just like, okay, then I guess it was another waste of time. So
Okay. And how did at least the second meeting to you compared to the first meeting? I mean, are we talking night and day? Was the
yeah, yeah,
did you just have
night and day.
you were coming into this one and basically like, man, based on how the first meeting went, I have zero expectations at all, or no? Like, how was it for you when you attended the
I
first
was
meeting to
so
now?
happy after the meeting. I
Okay,
was like, this is completely night and day. We had 2 hours assigned, and the meeting ended up taking like 3 hours and 30 minutes or something like that. Which was really, really appreciated. So I came out of that meeting super excited, very hyped. I felt like they highlighted a lot of the issues. Obviously, not everything's going to be perfect, but I went out of that meeting being like, okay, I can see myself, playing COD and wanting to contribute to the community still and everything. Um, but then in the coming weeks, they're not really doing what they were talking about and stuff. So I guess we got to just wait and see.
okay. And again, I know we're going to get to those as well. Let me,
Yep.
if we can, as we kind of get to each one, let's start with kind of. I know there's 9 points that they had announced, and you weren't the only one who stated that. I know Doom mentioned it, Platy mentioned it, and I think Lev and Jason at certain points throughout the sit down interview I did with them, kind of going over everything, had mentioned that there were a number of things that were not mentioned in the public announcement. I know that they had put out that, of course, were things that were discussed, and again, maybe they might be announced later, but I know at least initially
Right.
they weren't. And I know they had touched on kind of a few of those things, with I know a few of them being, I think, kind of still uh, kind of private, if you will. But the first one, Bastions. I know Platy kind of
Yep.
gave me an overview already, and had mentioned that all of you guys kind of had came together beforehand and were able to put together kind of a unified front. What I'm curious on from you is, based on what was shared, your all of your collective feedbacks for each of these, their response on Bastions. Is it
So,
enough? Is it too little? Where do you fall there? Or what would you have wish maybe happened in the
so
ideal state?
Yeah, we spent like 30 minutes on bastions and decorations, and I had a few suggestions. One of them being I want them to turn bastions into towers from Rise of Kingdoms. I know you played Rise of Kingdoms, so you know how aggressive the fighting is around towers, how there's always people swarming, there's just tons of chaos and everything, and I want that to be bastions. I don't want bastions to just be a filling with no field fighting or anything that's super boring. So my suggestion was to turn bastions into um, a more aggressive play style where bastions are swarmable. There's more battle acceleration. That's another big one. Because if you increase the battle acceleration, that means the bastion's taking more damage, which means if you're swarming, you're getting more value because they can't fill as fast. Um, and then also reducing the HP half, and then increasing the burning speed, which I think they did those two, but it doesn't even solve the issue at all. The issue is burning it in the first place. And what I suggested, like the Rise of Kingdoms comparison, for example, they went back and talked and said it was a good idea and stuff, and that they're gonna look into it more. Um, and then same with the battle acceleration thing. When I suggested that, they talked about it and said it was a good idea and that they'll consider it. But if those 2 things are not implemented, then Bastions is like, it's just not fixed at all. It's the same exact issue. How is how are you gonna burn a BTX Bastion? How are you gonna burn a WoW Bastion when they're 36 billion power? You just can't. It's impossible. The issue is burning it once, not, you know, burning for 4 hours.
Yeah. No, I mean, and these were things I know that they had brought up as well. You know, one. I saw an interesting comment on the video I had released with those four, and someone had even said, which is right along the alley of what you're saying. They were saying, why not make the Bastion like a Spire? And one of the things they had mentioned was the swarming portion. They said, well, make it like a spire so that way it can still be swarmable. You can still have more open field presence. And obviously, it's kind of like, just two sides of maybe the same coin, because you're just essentially saying, hey, let's make it like a standard flag is, where we can swarm and rally like in RoK, but just bring that over
Yeah.
here and make that for the Bastion.
Exactly. Yeah. I
So,
mean, like that's the fun aspect of Rise of Kingdoms. That's why people play Rise of Kingdoms
yeah.
because they like that playing style. They don't just like the rally and garrison playing style. They like how aggressive it is and how it actually takes skill to defend because if you're not coordinating how to fill your tower, you're gonna lose it instantly. And that needs to be the same case in this game because right now Bastions don't take any skill.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So in your view, overall, it's they did a little bit, but not enough for what you would have liked.
Yeah, they
Okay.
they completely missed the whole issue. And that was another thing that I kind of observed in the meeting as well is it sounded like they had someone in their ear or something telling them what the issues are when they aren't even the issues, which I'll get into later as well.
Okay. Okay. All
Oh,
right.
I guess it's connected to Bastions. I guess I can mention it.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Go ahead.
They
You're
they
good.
were so with the Bastion part, they
Yeah.
were super focused on the fact that Garwood Kuma is so overpowered as a garrison,
Hmm.
and that they were gonna specifically nerf that garrison combo because they think that's meta in Bastions. I'm like, how disconnected do you have to be from what's happening in your game to like think that? And I literally tried explaining to them multiple times in the meeting and they just refused to understand that that was only a Roots of War meta and it has nothing to do with Bastions at all. But they were fixated that fixing that combo will fix Bastions because they think that that combo is why Bastions are so tanky,
Mm. And
which
and
is not
and
true at
and
all.
and just for the audience out there as well, right? Given that that was obviously a lot more prevalent in Row League, what is usually being done right now in the meta for Bastions, at least as it pertains to KVKs? Just so people can understand
Yeah,
the differences there.
so there's a little preference thing.
Okay.
So, one of them, I think the most common one is Kuma Kwan. And then my favorite is Magro Kuma. And the reasoning is because we counter rally. So if Magro's on the garrison, then it's inflicting an extra HP debuff. So if you're counter rallying correctly, then in total you're going to be dealing more damage. But I think Kuma Kwan technically trades better on 101, but we never run that in MFD at least.
Okay. And just to kind of like double add on to this to really clarify it, Garwood Kuma is not, or Kuma Garwood is not something, at least at the moment, that you would say is some kind of like majority meta as it pertains
Not
as far as
even
within
remotely
KVKs.
close.
Just so we can cover the other side
Not
of that too. Okay.
not at all. Like I used it like in our KVK just as kind of a troll. Like maybe you can technically argue that you could get value if you're building a bastion and you're taking a lot of heat. You can throw Garwood Kuma because it's tankier than Magro Kuma or Kuma Kwan, but it's gonna trade negative regardless, so it doesn't really do anything in Bastion.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Uh, Number 2 on this one, decorations. Your
Mhm.
thoughts on their response?
Yeah, I mean, so I came out of the meeting, pretty satisfied with decorations and stuff. Um, they said that they're gonna add it to all the events. They're gonna add new events for decorations. They're gonna add it to um, the monthlies, possibly dailies, possibly VIP. I think that's exactly what they should do. Uh, and then they told us that with their math, once everything is released, a free to play can max a decoration, a legendary one, in 7 months. And then the Christmas event rolls around. I think there's one even before that or something. There was no decorations in it whatsoever. Uh, and I'm just like, why are you telling us this shit? And then not even doing any of it. I don't understand. It does not take any work to put it in the Christmas event. I don't know what other events are going to be coming up, but there's not going to be as many than this time of year. So they just didn't even do what they, told us they were going to do. So that rubbed me the complete wrong way. Um, and I mean, there's updated math on some of the things that they introduced. Like they were super proud to introduce blueprints into the Merit store and stuff. And it's literally pretty much nothing. You can get, I think, 2 blueprints a week or something, which is literally useless. Um, and yeah, the math I think is still like 10 years or something for a free to play to max decoration. It's so ridiculous. Um, but they told us it was 7 months, which is not true still. So unless they're holding back more updates and stuff, it's just not what they said it would be.
And to clarify, there they were referring, just so that people know, they were you're saying they were referring to that upper tier legendary decoration, not that lower tier one.
No, no, they're referring to the lower tier one. You can max that
Okay.
within 7 months.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they were very adamant that the stronger decoration is going to remain pay to win.
Yeah. Which obviously is just unfortunate to hear.
Yeah, I mean it is what it
Yeah.
is. Like
The example I gave to the group in our previous talk a couple days ago was, I mean, it would almost be tantamount to having a lower and upper tier legendary hero. It's like but you
yes,
don't have that,
yeah,
and it's just
it's so weird. Yeah,
it's as though they created their own sub tier category within the main tier out of nowhere.
yeah, it's so weird. Like, why not just make epic decorations that? I
Yeah,
don't get it. It's so weird.
yeah.
I guess they just want load spend the free to play players to feel good about themselves for owning a legendary,
Feel good
but
about themselves.
even if
Jeez.
you're mid spends, like you're just wasting money on decorations. So,
Yeah.
like,
And I think that the
yeah,
part of it as well, and I think this is something that as players we recognize, just generally speaking, is that if you're going to try, and especially for free to play, and obviously this is more so for people that spend, but if you're going into an area that is offering you, certain stats, whether that's an artifact, if it's a war pet, if it's a hero, if it's a decoration, most people, I would argue almost everyone or up to everyone, does not want to settle for like the tier 2, the tier 3 item. Like you want to try and figure out how you can get whatever the best or the highest tier is if it's available for you and invest down that path. And so the fact that, I mean, it's the same thing with heroes. It's like, you don't necessarily see a bunch of the top free to plays that are just rocking epics or whatever's or the uncommons, etc., or elites, right? It's just like no, like they're working their way. Now they may do use some in the interim or the short term, but long term down the road for endgame, everyone is trying to get to whatever the best of the best is. And so to me, it just feels like almost such a disservice and such a psychological disconnect from like just people who make games versus the players, because I can tell you for myself as a player, I would never want to max invest to whatever like is not the max tier thing unless it literally was just completely unattainable.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it is completely unattainable pretty much. Um, I know a lot of people fixate on like the low spend and stuff, but the amount of people with max decorations in this game is probably less than 50, like significantly
Yeah.
less than 50. And if it's that expensive, like it's literally giving me flashbacks to freaking Lord's Mobile, where there's like 11K heroes. That's
Uh,
literally what
well,
COD is turning into, which is so scary.
don't you get
Uh,
some of those vibes for things like equipment in RoK though? Because I know that can be pretty expensive. I don't know
yeah,
what
but
the
that was
spending for that
so
is though.
late.
It
That's
was.
the thing is
Yeah.
those updates were actually like it came in at good times.
Okay.
With Call of Dragons, we have pets that we need to spend on, which is expensive. Then resources, and even if you're just like a mid spender or even high spender, that's spending a lot of mana every season to resource heal. You want to max the new pets. I mean, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars a month to do that. Um, and pets are also very OP. Like if you have a max Venom Lizard, if you have a max Mozrock, you're farming people so hard. Even with my like mid-tier Mozrock, I'm getting like 70, 80K reports if I'm, microing the inf correctly and stuff. It's disgusting. And then also this year we had exemplars come in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the Great Heights change as well, where you're getting extra buffs, where you can activate like multiple city skins to get
Yeah.
extra
The doubles.
buffs. So with those two combined, you could argue that's practically T6, maybe T7. Um, okay, sorry. So exemplars in GH is definitely T6. And then if you have fully max pets, that's easily T7. And then now this came out, and then this is T8. It's
Yeah.
like All Dragons is 3 years old,
And,
and
don't
it's
don't
keep
forget the SVIP.
and the SVIP. Although a lot of people have that now. That
Yeah.
wasn't like a
Yeah.
huge deal. That wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of expected. It was 2 years, and we didn't have SVIP. That kind of makes sense. Um, and that's an achievable goal for people to work towards too for the next year or so. If you're in a good alliance. But now it's like there's T8 and this game is out for 3 years. Like what's gonna happen this next year in 2026? Are they gonna release another pay to win update now? Like people are not gonna catch up on decorations for the next years to come. And I like to imagine that they're gonna release another thing in 2026 now too, which they probably will. It's like really scary.
Because I know you've played both for RoK and COD, when you think about the things that they've released up to this point in COD for what you're aware of, at least when it comes to kind of like average spending, depending on your tier, do you think COD is getting close to RoK as far as like what you might spend at kind of each low, mid, high spend area, even if it is just kind of more of an average for like what their spending windows are, or I guess
Well,
spending averages are, or do you think that one is still kind of leading effortlessly over the other?
I don't know. I think they're just trying to milk COD as much as possible before it dies so that they can pump that into their new game. The biggest difference from COD to Rise of Kingdoms when it comes to spending is free-to-play players can exist in top kingdoms. Uh, Free-to-play players cannot exist in BTX. They can't exist in WoW. Um, and the free-to-play grinding in Rise of Kingdoms is so good to make up for that, where they can get billions of resources, tons of gems, so that they can do the events, they can buy equipment, they can do all those things. So there's no grind aspect whatsoever to COD, which is very strange, especially since they're pumping out all these pay to win updates. So if you're going to be cranking out these pay to win updates, you need to allow like a role for free to play players, which is not just solo filling bastions, and then they lose all their troops and they can't even afford to buy them back. Um, so yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. No, no, thank you for sharing on that one. How about for number three, map design?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the map design part, I feel pretty confident on what they're gonna do going forward. They're gonna spend a lot more time on making sure that no matter where you are in like in your starting region, you're always gonna have uh, like a similar amount of towers that you need to get to um, the point of contact. They said that they spent a little bit less time on that in the past, and that they're gonna just be more focused on that. So if they do that, that's great. But the biggest thing that I am kind of pissed about from the call is I suggested that they should buff the buildings and battlefields alliance skill, or do something where when a zone like a pass opens, maybe there's like a buff for an hour where you have building speed and stuff. Because the issue right now is, for example, in our final zone last season, it took us 16 hours of building to touch our opponent's towers. That is the biggest waste of time on planet Earth because you're having to build in multiple shells, you're having to micro farm accounts, you're having to try and motivate people to stay online to build. If people log off, you need to send a ping so that you can have a max tower because your opponents are doing it and stuff. Like it is the biggest time waste on planet Earth. Um, and I mentioned like something like that. And then they said that there was a previous season where they created a permanent buff in the final zone where it was like plus 500% building and plus 500% destroy. And like they kept bringing that up where they were like, we tested this and it didn't work how we intended. I'm like, you don't need to do it for the whole zone. All we're asking for is an hour long or something. Or if you buff the buildings and battlefields buff to 2 hours, that's plenty because then we're a couple towers away from our opponents once the buff ends, and then we're able to fight immediately. We don't want to be building for 16 hours. That's like that alone puts so much stress on leadership and the people that are putting in time and the people that are carrying the COD community with leading. It just makes it so boring. So and then I kept suggesting it. I'm like, you don't need to do it for a permanent buff. It just needs to be an hour. And then they just kept going back. That was like, we tested this and it didn't work. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
But then they
Yeah.
they ultimately ended up like agreeing to, yeah, we'll look at, or like we will buff the buildings and battlefields buff to 2 hours. They told me that in the call. And then we were literally celebrating in the group chat that we had. We're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Thank God. Like this is gonna actually make pass openings fun because the biggest thing as well is I'm not gonna tell people to take off work to fight if we're just gonna be building for 16 hours.
For that
I wanna
first
tell
day.
people to take.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, why am I supposed to tell people to, like, be online because we have to wait all this time? Um, so like, if a pass is opening, you should have everyone online ready to go, and building should be, 3 hours or something, and then you're, going crazy. Um, but then they didn't mention that in the dev meeting either, and I'm like, just like, "Come on, man. Come on."
It
And I
sounds like
think
to me like there's two things here. One is that, and which is to your point, they could also do something where they don't allow for the destruction bonus because they can customize it however they want. They could just allow for it to be like, okay, well, we'll just do it for the building portion, not for the destroying portion, just so you can get there faster. And then
yeah,
you either do it on a timer or you do it like once, or you can even do it for like once your flags reach like like a half line, or like within maybe like an inner circle. Maybe there's like some invisible ring or something that's close to the dragon. Like once
right.
you get a flag there, then the bonus or the buff is then nullified. You
Exactly,
could be
like, once
really
you enter the
creative.
dragon area, yeah,
Exactly.
like, once you enter because on every single map, there's a specific choke point between the dragon and, like, your pass or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As
Oh
soon
yeah,
as
where
it
all the
reaches
spires
past
are. It's like
there,
that inner spire
yeah,
ring or
or where the
whatever. Yeah.
spires are or bridges, there's always a choke point somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, wherever that is, then the buff ends or something. That would be literally perfect.
Yeah.
And it's not hard Like, it's just a common sense thing.
Yeah.
Why would you not do that? Nobody wants to be building for 16 hours and wasting their time.
Well, the
Um,
other part of it as well, which adds on to what you're saying, is that like let's say it does take that long. For people, depending on what time it is during the day, like let's just take what I would argue is the worst case scenario is it's the morning for someone. 16 hours is their entire day. So by the time the fighting starts, they're going to sleep.
Literally. Yes.
You know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So it's, you
That's
know,
the case every single KVK with
uh,
NA time zone.
yeah. And
'Cause
so
I waste the whole day.
but and so I understand it from that. Like it makes complete sense to me on how it's like, look, let's get there a little faster. So people, and I could understand if you're like, okay, even if just reducing it by half the time from 16 to 8 hours or doubling the speed, doubling the build up, like whatever it takes, even if it does take you a couple hours to get there to the middle, I think that would be okay. But I think the second
Yep.
biggest part here, or maybe the third biggest part, when you had mentioned that they said, well, we tested this. Or sorry, when you said that they said that they tested this and they came to this, okay, they need to keep in mind that there are different tiers of KVKs that you can be testing. And you can look at like a D or a C seed KVK, and yeah, the fighting could probably be over in a couple hours. You look at like a B seed KVK, and maybe the fighting lasts a day. Then you go to like an A seed, and I'm of course overgeneralizing, but you go to an A seed KVK, and it's like, okay, well, maybe the final zone fighting can last 2-3 days, give or take. And it's not to say that and again, it's not to say that because they allowed for building speed buffs to last that long in that test they did, that now created a situation in which the fighting ended incredibly fast. There's other factors that go into that outside of just building, such as how many troops you can train, opportunities for people to train troops, how expensive or inexpensive, how many events there are that incentivize troop training, the amount of deads that you would take if you're participating in something, the amount of obviously troops you get back, and of course glorious return is there too as well, which pretty much gives the majority. But point is that it's I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's not just because, and I'm not, and again I don't know if that's exactly what they said or not, but my point is just to simply say that there are other factors that go into that, and it's not solely dependent on if someone was to say that, well, the reason the KVK ended early is solely because we increased and had this permanent speed buff for towers, then the KVK was done in 5 hours.
Well, okay, so basically that KVK was on a complete extreme. So
Uh,
when I played that KVK, we redid the Diplo because it was AABB versus AABB. So we actually ended up fighting our allies in final zone just to even out the KVK. So we had a 2-day long final zone, and we were the only KVK that was able to fight that long because
yeah,
we redid Diplo. But the issue is if you have a downtime for 5 hours even, because keep in mind it's also 500% destruction speed in that specific season.
yeah.
You could be completely pushed out of final zone within that amount of time because
No,
towers take like
absolutely.
less than 20
Yep,
minutes to
yep.
destroy it,
No,
which
no,
is
you're
super
absolutely right, and
OP.
that's the other
But
side of it. It's like, yeah, like you get, it's like you get done building, and by the time you're touching, majority
it's
of your people
over.
have to go to sleep. But then the opponents you're playing maybe are on a different time zone. So you're right, they just crush all your towers back, and now you're potentially pushed out, or if not almost pushed out of FC by the time the majority of your peak time comes back on.
Yeah, but that was the way with that season. But if
Yeah,
they just did it so you build, and then once you reach the dragon area, then the buff is got or
yeah.
whatever, and they can do the math on how much time needs to be allotted to the buff or whatever it may be, then it's a perfect solution. I feel like there's not a single argument to be against that, and that's why I'm so confused on something so obvious and something that is one of the biggest quality of life updates that you could give. Um, is not being mentioned, and they literally said in the dev feedback that they tested it and it didn't work as intended, so they're not going to do it. Even though
Mhm.
they literally specifically told me in the dev meeting that they will be buffing the building and battlefields buff.
Yeah. It almost sounds like there's, based on what you're saying, is like maybe there's some things where they think, okay, hey, maybe we can actually improve this and fine tune it and make adjustments. And then maybe there's some things that they give up on a little bit too early, without
Yeah, I don't know.
taking a little bit more time to look into. But who knows, right? Maybe they'll do a part two and they'll do an expanded
That's what I'm waiting for.
yeah,
Like I'll give
round
them.
table
I'm
thing.
I'm playing this next season regardless. I'm hoping they make the changes that they talked about and
Yeah.
they, do a good job. Like I made it very clear in the dub meeting as well as, you have next season to try and retain as many players as possible. There's already been a ton of damage dealt, but there's a lot of people that are just waiting to see, what you guys are doing after this, 5-person king meeting. So you gotta earn, the players' trust because right now there's a lot of negativity towards the devs. There's a lot of negativity towards the game. Lots of people are not having fun and they're kind of just, ready to quit unless good updates follow. So
Gotcha. Okay. How about number 4? Let's get into matchmaking. Your thoughts there?
yep. So I had another suggestion, another Rise of Kingdoms suggestion. In Rise of Kingdoms, I played a KVK maybe like 6 months ago or something like that. And it was so much fun. It was in Zone 2. It was 6 kingdoms versus 6 kingdoms, and it
Jeez.
was so much fun. It was so much chaos. There was like 8 different fronts going on at the same time with full field on each
Was the
front. It
lag
was
insane?
no, no,
Oh,
it was not. It was so much fun. Um, and I suggested doing that in Call of Dragons as well. The issue with Call of Dragons, and I mean this with all due respect, but there's not a lot of competitive kingdoms. So the way that you offset that is just by increasing the amount of people that is in the season. The more people that are in the season, the more chaos. And chaos is the perfect word of like to kind of illustrate what people want when it comes to fighting. The issue right now is I feel like in every single KVK that happens, I can look at the matchup and I know the alliances and I can just tell you who's gonna win based on that. I feel like that's the case in every single KVK um, for the last while. So if they add like a 6v6, so the entire KVK would be freaking 12v12, or even if it's 6v6 with B kingdoms, so then there was one Imperium kingdom, which would be like BTX or WoW or something. Like even that would be a ton of fun because then those smaller Bs and stuff can make a name for themselves. They get to fight, 6-on-6 in Zone 2, and then those 6 kingdoms get to take on, a big kingdom. And which also creates a lot of fun for the super kingdoms too, because I mean you gotta deal with 6 kingdoms with all their bastions and all their troops, and they're able to push a bunch of different directions while you only have one alliance. You have 200 players. Like how are you going to be able to conserve stamina, play smartly to beat that? It's really difficult. um and that's why a lot of those Imperium kingdoms and Rise of Kingdoms stay alive too, is because they always have good competition, and they're always fighting new people when they want. So that was my biggest piece of advice for them, is just put more kingdoms in the KVK. The issue with like 4v4 or sorry, not there hasn't been a 4v4, like 3v3 or 2v2 is, like I mentioned, there is a huge skill issue in this game where there's not a lot of good leaders, there's not a lot of competitive alliances, and when that's the case, like people are just going to steamroll in 1v1s because they're just so much better. But if you increase the amount of kingdoms that's in the picture, then it's way more unpredictable to who's going to win. There's way more, um, things you got to weigh, and way more players, and it's way more fun. So
Okay. Well, what would you say, I guess, to 2 points, right? If I'm on maybe the other side of that, I think 2 things come to mind initially. One would be already they're feeling like a sense of displacement amongst many bees, at least I know that I've talked to, and that have also been vocal about getting paired with A kingdoms. And
yeah,
that's coming more from kings and queens. I know I've had the chance to speak to where at least a number, I'd say at least more than a handful, have at minimum have came out and said, well, we have no business being in this KVK with an A kingdom. And I think the second piece here is that depending on the level well, I guess there's 3. The second one would be when it comes to the amount of lag already that we see kind of from the number 1 kvks, at least maybe not necessarily AOD, but from the recent season, but definitely in the previous couple seasons where there was I would say a substantial amount of lag that occurred when we ended up hitting the final zone and you saw the troops there. Now, maybe that's a difference between RoK servers versus COD servers at the moment, but I know that would at least be a fear and a cautionary fear from some on, hey, what if we increased it by this much and that happens? And I think the third element here would be, as you refer to, kind of management and having, let's just say, competent leadership. Part of me, and I think we can both agree here, as you keep going down and you add in more kingdoms, because if you're going 1 through 6 and then you're expanding it to 12, 7 through 12, as we keep going down the leaderboard, essentially, the percentage does increase as you continue to go down. Now, it may not be a large percentage near the top, but it will continue to go down when it comes to the amount of competent versus non-competent leadership that I know we both have seen. So I guess for me, like those would be my three things I would bring up, at least for potential responses from people in the community and or maybe even just other kings or queens.
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest issue is I would not want to be a B kingdom right now that's going into a KVK where you have to take on freaking WB or EIS. Like that does not sound fun
Yeah.
whatsoever because it's a 2-on-1 and they're 30, like they're more power than both of you guys combined. Like like
Mhm.
how is that remotely
So
possible
you're
to win?
saying
That does
more on
not sound
like if
fun.
the powers were closer, then you're okay with.
No, 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 no. The
Oh.
bees need like to be at least or like around double the power of the Imperium kingdoms,
Mm,
or even maybe more to make it balanced.
okay.
So like the way it is in Rise of Kingdoms, for example, is an Imperium kingdom. Let's say they're like 20 billion power, right, or 21 billion power. So GT, and then there's 6 B kingdoms or something. Those B kingdoms are like 10 to 12 billion power, and in Rise of Kingdoms, that's like an A kingdom. So that's a strong kingdom, right?
Okay.
Um, so when you have, I mean, that's like a 3x of the power of the Imperium
Yeah.
kingdoms, and that's where it becomes really fun.
I see. So it,
Is
it, it
when
almost
there's
sounds
such
like
a
the
high disparity where like the Imperium kingdoms should lose in that situation, and
mm,
if they want to win, they got to give so much in order to win, and that's the way it should be.
okay. It almost sounds to me that it's like if there's that many bees that are going up against an imp A or Imperium A, because
Yeah,
obviously there's only going to be a percentage, like the top smaller percentage of those bees will probably be closer to kind of pound for pound competing with the average account on an Imperium A,
right,
and then the
right.
remainder of the players would be more. I don't want to say fodder because that obviously probably sounds a little bit too negatively aggressive, but there'll be more fillers, utility support, right? They maybe more open field focus rather than necessarily rallying, right? But they can still contribute in some way, even if it may not necessarily be in a full capacity to like the top players within those bees. But it's like they're putting enough bees in there to where maybe the top players that could be close or maybe go pound for pound with an average player in the Imp A, it's like they're putting enough bees in there to where maybe those numbers are close in that sense. And then obviously, maybe the other side you're saying is essentially giving the Imperium A the feeling of a more competitive challenge, but just kind of approaching it
Yeah,
from a
like
different
they
way.
should lose. Like if
Okay.
they want to win, they got to put so much effort into that season
Mm,
to where they really really earn it. Because when you're fighting like 3x your numbers in the field, you can't just be bombing out cab, you can't just be bombing out inv. You're going to lose because stamina is a thing.
mm.
So and that's the biggest thing is like I just want these like the top kingdoms to have a purpose and um when you're forcing all the top kingdoms to fight each other, there's so much like toxicity between them and so much beef. Like there's
Really?
top
I thought it
KVK is
was all
just
love
thermal
and
cooked.
rainbows.
Nah, not at all. Not at all. Like I'm already hearing drama in the top KVK that hasn't even been announced yet.
Yo, it's
Of
been going the
people like
past
saying
from
we're
Gen
not
Chat's
gonna
been
be.
crazy the past couple days.
Yeah, people have just been telling me what's been going on. I haven't been looking much, but it's just like that's always gonna be the case. And like what I would much rather watch is like WoW versus BTX, and both of them have 6 Bs on their side instead of like the ones below that because
Yeah,
like for example, I think NXW is in within the picture, but they have a lot of T4 and stuff. Like they're a really good alliance. They're coordinated and everything, but
yeah.
like there's gonna be a power diff for sure. And nobody wants them. Like BTX and WoW does not want NXW on their team. Um, And that's been the case in every single season. Like, there's always the weakest link, and whoever gets the weakest link just gets demolished. So yeah, they need to figure out a thing with that. And honestly, like, there's not even 6 kingdoms with good leadership in this game, to be honest, to even make up the top 6. So they need to come up with other ideas to make that top KVK more fun. And I gave them my suggestions. I think that's, the perfect fix. My opinion, it works in RoK and people love it. I don't know why you wouldn't take things that people love from that game and put it into this game, as long as it doesn't infringe on the core principles of why people play CoD instead of RoK.
Mm. Someone had suggested, like, when it comes to, because, like, for me, I like to try and look at it from a couple different angles, and part of me feels like if they just had a little better, or let's just say better approach, because I view this as an opportunity to improve when it comes to kingdom balance. And I'm talking about like fighting strength, power balance, or power per kingdom, and addressing that more at the root, which would factor into matchmaking on having more kingdoms that are a lot closer together, lower margins when it comes to fighting or punching strength versus one another. And I know someone had suggested, I think when I was doing the live stream, they said something to the effect of, well, why don't we increase the migration point score per player at higher power levels, so that way there would be a little bit more, kind of almost like what Imperium does, right, so to speak, in RoK, or at least from what I recall them used
Yeah,
to doing, and but just having a little bit more restrictions in that front, so that way the top end or the higher cap doesn't feel like it continues to increase by as much, and it also gives people a way to catch up from the bottom, right? You're kind of sandwiching it from the top
yeah,
and the bottom, right? Where you're, because again, from the recent data, we can see that last season people were full status, and the highest they were was 32 bill, with one kingdom being like 27 or 26 bill in full status. But now BTX is essentially, their top 300 is 37, close to 37 bill, but if you look at their entire kingdom power, they're over 41 bill, and they're not even
yeah.
full status
It's
yet. And it's just,
ridiculous.
in the example I gave was, it feels like we're back in that no in that unique singular no cap migration season that occurred.
It's the same, exactly. It's literally the same. Like, the only thing that this migration score does is you can't build 2 alliances. That's the only thing it
Yeah.
does. Otherwise,
Well,
you can
you
literally have
could, but
200
you would
players.
have to take, you'd have to take smaller players and more of them in order to do that.
Yeah, but even then, I
Yeah.
think you can only get near like 250 at the max. But yeah, like, you can have 200
Well,
members that
I'm
are
curious.
all
What do you
running
think
a
about
million
that, though?
power right
That's
now.
my question.
No, no, it's a huge issue. It's a
What do you
huge
think
issue.
about that RMS point idea that someone, that a viewer had brought up, about maybe raising the points, the RMS points? Because I think the highest is 23 points per an individual right now. What do you
Yeah.
think about maybe raising that? Let's say maybe to like 30 or something like that, or however much. Do you think that's at least maybe one way to address kind of the top end?
I mean, even more than that, to
Okay.
be honest. I think it should be like, it should include troop power. Like, why does one kingdom have like so many 200 mil plus players? It makes no sense. Like, each kingdom should have like up to 10 Krakens or something like that.
No.
And that's it. And if you have more than that, then it's just such a powerhouse to where you could have the worst strategy, you could have the worst leadership ever, but if you just recruit well, then you will just steamroll everyone because you have infinite money, and it's just boring.
What you just said,
And
something that sparked something for me. What do
yeah,
you think about the idea of saying something like, if you had um like tiers of, God, as an example, maybe it's something like, you could have up to, like, every kingdom could have up to like 50, 100 mil, or like maybe like 100 mil plus players. You could have maybe up to like 50, 200 mil plus players, or 125, and maybe it's like 20, maybe it's like 40, 150s, and then like at 175 you could have 30 players over that. Like, what if they did something like that, and it was just a hard cap, so that way, at most you could maybe ever have, I don't know, 3 people over 500 mil, maybe like one person over a bill, but it was something like that, that like it like truly applied a hard cap, but it was more at power tier levels. And then it would, my view is like, maybe, well, maybe if they did something like that, it would almost force people to be like, okay, well, we only have one spot now at the 200 mil level if someone migrated out, so we can only bring one person in. So they're forced to have to go somewhere else, which I feel like would at least balance certain things in kind of a hard way. But I just thought of this based on what you said. What do you think about something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the issue is it's way too late because a lot
Well,
of the
yeah.
good leadership quit already. Like now, if you were to introduce that and like lots of the good
What would you say
leadership
if they had
quit the
done in the
game
beginning?
within,
Let's say.
yeah, it would have been maybe not specifically along those lines.
Yeah.
Like maybe if that's intertwined with like the migration score type thing, to where like
Mm,
the devs came up with what they want internally, and then they translated that into what the migration score is. Then
I
that would
see.
make sense. But it's way too late to do that. They should have done that a year ago,
Yeah.
when lots of the good leadership was still here. Because the issue, if you do it now, is like I said, there's not like many good alliances at all. I don't know about like the 600 plus kingdoms. I don't know how good
Yeah.
their leadership is, but pretty much most of them below that are, not up to par to like the most competitive kingdoms in the game. So if you're forcing whales and krakens and stuff to leave the kingdoms they're in right now to go to really bad ones, then they're just gonna quit. There's no reason to play
Mm.
if they can't compete um, with good leadership. So yeah, you can't do that anymore. But I wish they did that in the past for sure. Would have been a really good fix. Because also, like I've been saying this for a long ass time, but there shouldn't even be a single kingdom above like 22, 23 billion power.
Yeah. I
Like,
think we talked
and
about
now
this
we have a
before when I chatted
36
with you.
billion power.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100% probably have because it's so ridiculous. It's insanely ridiculous. How is there a kingdom that's 36 billion power? Or sorry, the alliance is 36 billion
Yeah.
power right now. That is just so disgusting and so dumb. It makes no sense. And they still have 300 migration score in their normal one, and they have special migration still. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
they could easily be like 45 bill if they wanted.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Nobody's catching up to that at all.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you know what it reminds me of, and I said this to the other four, was it reminds me of that TFS no cap season when they hit 40 bill plus, and it reminds me of
yeah,
when like Noir was like at their peak as well, when they were just
yep,
stupidly stronger like than at least power wise than everyone else, and it was almost kind of like that
yeah,
1% funnel connection at the top. But like those are the two standouts for me, and that's kind of what I look at. And it's no shade towards BTX. It's just if you're looking to kind of draw parallels and similarities, like to me, those are the two standouts that come to mind when I look at what's happening now.
yep. Well, and that's another issue is TFS died after that, Noir died after that. Every single top alliance that does that ends up dying. And the reasoning is because when you're the top like that and you have so much power, there's all these unrealistic expectations set
Mm,
for you. And if you lose one season or something goes wrong or the war leading's bad for 2 hours, then your alliance collapses because all
mm,
the people in the top alliances expect the best. So I would fully expect like BTX, like WoW or like the other top alliances, like whoever loses is probably going to lose some people too, because people just are setting unrealistic
yeah.
expectations for their alliances and stuff.
Do you feel that like when you're because this is something I've said before is that when you're number one and either when you're number one and or when you are just publicly perceived to be visually stronger than everyone else, one of two things usually happens. One is that you either get into a season and it's too easy and you either steamroll or it's not competitive enough, or B, you're the underdog depending on by how much, and then you get steamrolled and it's almost as though it's all about finding that happy medium where every to me at least where everyone in the kvk, whether it's the kingdoms and or the teams, everyone feels like they have an opportunity to win, that they can beat anyone else. And that's when, to me, I feel like you get the truest form of a competitive rivalry, of player engagement, of participation, of like peak spending, when everyone feels like they have a shot at winning. But like to me, I feel like that's those 2 points are like two other ways of looking at when you are number one and or if you're just, publicly perceived as being stronger than everyone else by like a decent
Yep.
amount.
Well, and also that's why I admire Sod and Tempe. I know a lot of people hate them and stuff, but Echo was able to stay number one for a year and a half or whatever that
Yeah.
time period was, which is super impressive. I mean, they had lots of trash KVKs. They had a couple decent ones, and then they ended up, losing to EIS and WB. And the fact that they were able to stay together and still stay the number one alliance is very impressive. But the issue when you're number one is all the expectations are that you perform perfect, that you
Yeah.
win every single time. And once those expectations are met, there's always drama and people leave and all that kind of stuff. And then from a leadership perspective, when you're there, it's just like so overwhelming and so tiring when um, all of it like falls apart and people are leaving for what you feel like is no reason and stuff. And yeah, it's
Yep.
not easy, and it's gonna happen right now too after this next season probably.
Yeah. It's I was just thinking, that God, that meme or that thing sometimes you'll see in videos or like in movies where like you work in a warehouse or you're some kind of factory or some kind of like chemical plant and there's that timer there and it says like this is how many days that have passed since a recent incident or an accident,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I was just thinking, man, what if they did something like that for like every time there was like a new number one kingdom or new number one alliance, and like this is how many days they stayed at number one until they fell off or something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
That'd be
but
nice
yeah.
to know.
Um, but anyways, okay, let's. I know we got a couple more here. So
Yep,
number
yep, yep.
five, hero balance, and I know this one was a little bit more. I think them kind of talking about the garrisons and the rallies, and I know this was them kind of touching on like the healing, like stop receiving healing once their troop count drops below a specific. Like that was one thing they mentioned, but I know like the hero balance portion was a little bit more on like enhancing, marksman, mages, cav, like that. That's what they were saying. But what are your thoughts there on the balancing?
Yeah, the biggest thing which they mentioned, which is one of the reasons I was excited, is we're gonna start seeing, mage garrisons, archer garrisons, cav rallies, all that kind of stuff, which is gonna be great. That's gonna increase a lot of skill when it comes to bastions. Uh, that's how it is in Rise of Kingdoms, is you can rally with any troop type. You can garrison with any troop type, which is fantastic. So they're finally introducing that to this game, which is way long overdue because it's literally been if rally or garrison for 3 years. I mean, literally the whole time since the games came
Jeez.
out. There's never been like, you can garrison with archers or you can garrison with cav or rally with both. Like it's not possible. So I'm excited they're introducing that, and especially in row, that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Um, Otherwise, the main thing that they were fixated on was making sure the garrison in the bastion can't heal,
Mhm.
so that you need to constantly refresh the garrison like every 5 minutes. That's a terrible update. I highly disagree with that. I was initially kind of conflicted. I'm like, I mean, technically, if you want, the attackers to get a significant advantage, then, if you kill off the garrison, like the defenders need multiple garrison leads ready. Um, so like maybe I guess that's a nerf, but why not just do like increased battle acceleration, make it more swarmable? That's way more fun. When I'm having to worry about my garrison dying every freaking 5 minutes, that is not fun at all. That's not enjoyable. Um, and it's going to make garrisoning literally impossible unless you have piloted accounts. Because normally, like if people have exemplars, or sorry, not exemplar, like max decorations and stuff, a lot of those whales don't have like pilots. Um, so they just throw the garrison in or whatever, and it's going to survive, and they can log off or whatever. So now you're demanding them to be online 24/7. They need to have perfect mechanics in order to be able to efficiently bring in and out their garrison and refresh and all that kind of stuff. And that's just going to be not fun to deal with at all. Um, so I mean, we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'm overreacting, but it would have been way better if they just increased battle acceleration and made it more swarmable. But we'll see on
Mm.
that.
What do you think about this? I appreciate the share there. Doom had brought this up as it pertains to stamina usage and how one side, as the I'm forgetting now if he said it was the attacker or the defender, but he said like one side basically has to keep swapping out
It's the
uh,
garrison. Yeah.
the defender, thank you, the garrison, right? And then he said the attackers don't. So it's like one side is kind of basically using a bunch of stamina, but the other side isn't. And I know one of the things he suggested, I don't know if he said he did or the group did, but he
Yeah, he
mentioned it as far as
suggested it.
both sides having to basically be on the same page. So it's like if one side's using that, then the other side should have to be doing that as well. So like the stamina exertion is consistent on both ends. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Um, I mean, like the reason the devs are doing that is to nerf the garrison. So if that's the whole reason they're doing it, then there's no point in reducing the stamina on the rally. In fact, why just do these changes at all?
Mm.
They could just leave it the same as it is right now. So the only reason they're doing it is to nerf the garrison. They don't want it to be equal to the rally.
Okay, so essentially, you're saying that based on I know what Doom had brought up is that the change that's being made could potentially correct itself in that way.
So no, like Doom's suggestion is to balance it, but that's not what the devs are intending it to do. The devs are intending it to imbalance it, so the defenders have to refresh constantly and they have a disadvantage.
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
What
I'm
Doom
following.
wants
Gotcha.
to do is he wants to equalize it, which is not the intention of what the
Mm.
devs did.
Well, yeah, I think equalize it from a stamina perspective. I don't know about anything else, but I know at
Yeah,
least from like who where.
yeah, but if you equalize the stamina, then the whole update doesn't even make any sense at all.
Okay,
So.
okay, fair enough.
But
Uh,
I disagree with them doing like removing or making it so you have to refresh faster on Garrison. I don't agree with that. I think they should just buff the battle acceleration and make it more swarmable.
okay, okay. What about for number 6 here? Kingdom Alliance Management.
Yeah. So there was a suggestion made that like they should create a kingdom interface where you can plan a row from like the kingdom screen or like the dragon screen or whatever. Because we can give titles that way and we can send kingdom mails. It'd be nice if we could start row and register people's row in that way. But then also caravan and some of the other events because in mobilization especially because the issue is when we're fighting, we're building up shells and all that. We're not in the same alliance, and if we're doing mobilization to keep swapping back to the main shell when we're fighting in MFD, like in a sub alliance or something, it's so annoying to do. Um, so we suggested that. Um, they were kind of like in denial a little bit. Like they said that they probably won't do it, which is unfortunate. But that was the suggestion.
Mm.
Um, and I really hope that they do something like that at some point. But then I also recommended a Discord bot. We had a Discord bot in MFD's server, which displayed a bunch of data and everything. So I suggested to, create a Discord bot to where we can just invite it to our server. Like if I'm sure you've played games where like those games have Discord bots where you can
Yeah.
search up matchups or do other things. They need
Mm.
to do the same thing
Absolutely.
in CallofDragons. I feel like that would be amazing. Imagine us not having to pay for data or do much with data. We can just
Mm.
use a bot and then that's everything that we have. That would be amazing. Um, I don't know if I can mention this. If I could, I don't really care. They're working on like different data things.
Oh no, no,
To
no, no. They
introduce.
talked about that, and the others.
Okay,
I think the
okay,
others
good.
mentioned that too as well. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, good, good, good. Yeah, so they're gonna make like a website or something with all the data, which
Yeah.
is gonna be cool. But then they said that they will end up likely working on a Discord bot once that is finished as well. So
Okay.
I'm pretty hyped on that. That'll be pretty sick.
No, absolutely. And I know they mentioned it on the recent issues Q&A too as well. Like they talked about introducing data management tools and something that they are
Yeah.
like thinking that they're planning to do in the future. I, for one, at least think that would be absolutely amazing because you are right. There's other games out there that have official Discord bots that are developed by
Yep.
those teams, and then they put them out, and then you can invite them to your server. And I just think that, especially with because the funny part about data stuff, right, is that it never used to be as wide as popular widespread wise as it is, and I think has been getting as of late. I mean, even
Yep.
I remember when I was playing RoK, shortly after beta, maybe for the first few years, like it really wasn't that it wasn't like as big of a thing And even now, I mean, to be
No.
fair, even on RoK, like there's no one, there's no creators, there's no creators that kind of cover data, at least in the same way that I do.
Yeah, no, nobody covers data the way you do, but there's been
But there are
websites
sites,
and
yeah, there are
everything.
groups
Yeah, like
that are
that's what we
passionate
would use.
about
Yeah, we would
absolutely.
pay a subscription for a website on Rise of Kingdoms, so we could literally see everyone's data. It was all
Yeah,
displayed there.
yeah,
It was so nice. It had like bar graphs of everything. We could compare kingdoms to kingdom. It was so nice. So I'd envision that the devs are going to do something similar to that, and then with the Discord bot, we'll see what they end up
yeah,
doing with that. But that'll be super useful, and hopefully they can add some new stats that we can't pull right now,
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah,
which could be
yeah. That'd be
useful.
cool.
So
That'd be
yeah,
dope.
yeah, I'm sure they'll do something unique.
Yeah, hopefully they're generous enough to give BN like some spectator viewer privileges.
Oh,
I mean,
I support it. I support it.
okay, let's go to number 7. Exemplar artifacts.
Yeah, so I think they mentioned that they're gonna make it so there's a significantly less chance of pulling duplicates.
Yeah.
That's a great update. I also suggested that they should refund people for all the duplicates that they did, like if even if it's just like one legendary emblem or something per duplicate that they got.
Mm.
That would be a great change because I know tons of whales were like raging so hard because they're spending all these gems and money uh, to get exemplars, and then they're just constantly pulling duplicates. Like that is the most frustrating thing ever. So hopefully they compensate people for that. But that's a great change. Although I think it's not 0% chance, which I don't understand. Maybe my memory is completely wrong, but I think they said something like 70-30. Like you'll have a 70% chance of not getting a duplicate now. I don't know why you wouldn't just make it 100% chance. Like why allow people to rage still? I don't get it. Just if you're gonna improve it, just make it 100%. Doesn't even hurt. Um, but yeah, we'll see on that. That was a good change though, for sure. I'm happy about that.
Okay. What about we got 2 more here. Number 8 for Glorious Return. You talked about essentially nerfing
Yeah,
this.
removing that is dumb. So originally, like I'm one of the I'm a Rise of Kingdoms player, right? I love taking deads. I love zeroing my account every season. It's what I do. Um, I think before Glorious Returns, I had like over 10 million deads and stuff, of legitimate deads. When it initially came out, I was like kind of skeptical, but um, it makes people less scared and it promotes a more aggressive playing style. The issue with the COD player base, at least, is everyone is very sensitive to their troops and they care a lot about their troops. And in Rise of Kingdoms, the mentality was opposite, where it's like, I don't give a shit about my troops. Like, I'll zero my account, whatever. Like, that's pretty much the majority of the player base in Rise of Kingdoms. That is not the player base in CallofDragons, and there's only like a handful of people that I know that were like willing to zero their accounts, for the cause. So Glorious Returns was a great update. If you know that you're not going to take any deads at the end of the season, why don't you just, if you're a 300 million power player, the most value that you can do as a whale is to literally just use up all your archers swarming bastions, use all your infantry solo filling a bastion, swarm cities. Like who cares? You're gonna get it all back at the end of the season. Um, and especially since I was recommending updates like let's make bastions more swarmable and that kind of stuff. Glorious Returns promotes that aggressive playing style. So I don't understand why they reverted it because I think that's the case right now. Is they're planning on removing it, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and this
nerfing
is
it.
or nerfing it.
Yeah,
Like
reducing the percentage.
it's the same thing with a lot of the issues that I mentioned in the dev meeting. It's like who is telling them this information? Nobody was complaining about it. I knew one person that was against the Glorious Returns update.
Mm.
That's it. Like I didn't know anyone else besides that. Like who are they getting this information from that it's a bad update and stuff? I want to meet that person. I want to know who it is because it is not 99% of the community. I can tell you that much. Um, so, and it's the same thing like I mentioned earlier, where they were so fixated that Garwood Kuma was the Bastion meta when it's never used in Bastion fights. It's like, why are you guys fixated on this thing when we're telling you it is never used in Bastions, it's only used in Ro, and then they're saying it's used in Bastions, and they're gonna nerf that combo to fix Bastions. Like, it's really confusing on where they're getting that from.
Yeah, because I know at least the others had said that like the glorious return portion wasn't something that you all talked about.
We didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess obviously number 9 we get to is brand new content. And I know there was a few things that were mentioned here, such as festival events, that new season of Strife scenario they're saying is going to debut in April, the Siege Warfare system, that Roots of War
Yep.
League Peak tournament, and then also the cross server invasions. Those 5.
Yeah. Like, this is the frustrating things with the devs, right? Is like everything is like terrible, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, let's just release an update that's never happened in any other mobile game." I'm like, oh, this is torture. This is torture. It's like one side of me is like super excited about like there's gonna be a China X international crossover. Like that's gonna be so sick. That's gonna be so much fun. Like those KVK fights are gonna be crazy. We're gonna see these insane Chinese Kraken super kingdoms pop up. There's gonna be tons of fighting competition and everything. And then obviously the invitational's been done in other games and stuff. So that will still be super fun. And then the new concept that they have for that new season where like your alliance is fighting within a city, like your mages and archers can climb the city walls and shoot down on people that are trying to attack the walls and get through the gate with their infantry and cap. Like that's gonna be so sick. So like it's just like constantly like all this bad stuff is happening with the game, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, here's all this new shiny content that we're gonna throw at you this year." It's like, ugh. I guess I gotta keep going, but we'll see.
Yeah, it almost, and it's not to say that this is what they're doing, but I do think it's fair to say that some players may perceive it that way, which is again to what you just said, is that hey, there's things that we're kind of, it feels like we're in these turbulent times and they're coming out with new stuff, and is that kind of a distraction or a form of distraction from,
It is. It
right, from
is.
what's
Yep.
going on? And I do think it's fair to say that some people will view it that way. Not everyone, but some people will view it that way. And I think I'm in a similar boat on the front of, yeah, some of this stuff is sounds super exciting. Like the new developed SOS scenario. I mean, first off, to be fair, I think everyone is hyped for when a new KVK season, a new map is debuted, with the exception of obviously just how poorly AOD went. So I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but they obviously said, "Hey, listen, right? We're going to develop this and have this new season have a lot of these other things in mind, things that the community has advocated for." And then you hear them talk about the siege warfare system, and that seems super interesting. And then obviously the Roots of War League tournament between global versus China, like that sounds. I mean, at face value, now Jason brought up a good point, which is that, and then a few others chimed in as well, is that you know, at least on the China sides, they were saying that the like some of the bundles and packs or things can be cheaper, and that they're probably having like more average maxed out accounts or whatnot. So it's like they were saying that they could just be kind of super players, so to speak, in that sense. I don't know if that's the exact word they used, but that's kind of how I summarized what they were saying, and making it seem like Roots of War League might actually, even though it sounds interesting, it could actually end up being, unless they, applied some kinds of restrictions or rules or caps in certain areas, where if it's just kind of everyone utilizing their account, like it could be imbalanced, or you might see like
So
some severe mismatches.
for the Invitational, which is the China and international competing for the Roots of War League, whatever. That's on a completely even playing field. We're gonna be given accounts to compete in that.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So very basically similar to that global thing I did with some of the players and CCs,
Yes.
right? Where it's like
Yes.
they said,
Yes.
hey, everyone has like basically max out accounts. You can fine tune it however you see fit.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Okay.
Yep.
In that case, and if that ends up being the case, then I'm absolutely on board with you, and I'm super hyped for that.
Yeah, yeah, and basically, like, those teams are not finalized yet, but the people who made the top 4 in the last Row League will be competing in that, and then they're gonna add a couple other teams as well,
Oh,
so,
dude,
it'll
interesting.
probably be like a yeah, it'll probably end up being a top 16 type thing where there's, 8 teams from international versus 8 teams from the Chinese server.
Okay. Wow. And if it's I see, so yeah, it's almost kind of like they're doing like a March Madness thing for basketball at the end of the year. One of those. Um,
Yeah, I'd assume it's
no.
something I mean, they're probably gonna do they might do group stage too, but, I mean, with that many kingdoms, they might as well just do a bracket.
Yeah. No. Yeah, man. No, that'd be pretty cool. And then I guess the last
Yep.
one there was cross server invasions. And I know there's not a lot of information out about that right now. They did allude to a bit more where they said you can fight kingdoms and battle for territory. And that was some new words that were introduced there, but there's still not a lot known about the extent and exactly the scope of what cross server invasions are. Now, for me, at least initially, and I've been pretty upfront about this, I am cautiously skeptical.
Yep. Yeah, it's failed in tons of games, so, we'll have to see how that works.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I think that's gonna be really tricky in, like, CallofDragons and Rise of Kingdoms. I don't know how well that's gonna work, but, I mean, time will tell. It's another form of PvP. I hope that is the case during our off season, like, between KVKs and stuff. I hope that's what
Okay.
happens. That would be nice. But, yeah, we'll have to see how those mechanics work with that, but we definitely need some sort of fighting during the off season.
Yeah. Okay. We have arrived at the end.
Yep.
uh, as always, I ask everyone, you can give me closing thoughts, shout outs, shots you'd like to fire, declarations you would like to declare. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I don't wanna call out anyone, there's no need. And I don't call out people anyways. But the biggest thing is, like, this is the last time that you guys are gonna see of me on any kind of, like, YouTube channel or anything. Um, after this dev meeting, that was the last time I'm going to contribute to the CallofDragons community. So you're not gonna really see me in the CallofDragons Discord much anymore, or on other YouTube channels or talking on like commenting on YouTube channels and stuff. I'm pretty much only focused on MFD now and gonna stay internal and just ride out the game I guess and see how it goes. Um, but yeah, I'm hoping next season is gonna be fun, and if it's not, I mean we'll see what happens. But yeah, after this dev meeting, I was super hyped. It seemed like they answered a lot of our, you know, issues and stuff. And then, now 2 weeks after that, we haven't seen much of it at all. So, not a lot of hope for me at least with the game, and I'm not going to be dedicating time to trying to grow the game as much as I used to because I used to be super invested. I was always the number one supporter of COD all the time, even in King Chat when people would be criticizing them, I would always be, defending the game and everything, and all that's kind of faded as of recent. So we'll have to, see what they do. I hope that they make the adequate changes that they need in order to fix the game, but my hope for that is pretty much dwindled. So I'm just going to be playing with MFD, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Thank you for sharing. Well, listen, folks, that is it for us. Obviously, a huge shout out to Abda for taking time out of his day to come and chat with me. And we were able to round out that fifth horseman here for the individuals that were selected for the player and developer meetup this second go around. We have now officially heard from everyone. And obviously, a huge shout out to the others as well, being Platty, Doom, Jason, and Lev. Much appreciated. I think for me, these have been incredibly helpful and I hope beneficial in some way to the community when it comes to hearing perspectives like yourself, Abda, and others from people that were there, from people that have played not only this game for a while, but with some of you having played other kingdom builders as well. and being able to hear feedback directly from how you felt and what you got out of it. And I think that's incredibly important. So again, I'm glad I was able to at least share that and could give you all a platform for that, because for me, these are the things that at least I really find enjoyable to talk about, to hear from. And I think a lot of these community aspects are things that hopefully the player base likes to hear from as well. So with that in mind, thank you. And again, I appreciate the time. That is it for us. If you would like for me to interview someone next, who should it be? Why? Let me know in the comments down below, along with what you thought about our conversation today. We'd love to hear. And that's it. As always, until next time, we'll catch y'all later.